Well, Mr. Speaker, it's understandable why they would want to control the news, because the news is getting increasingly bleak for this government's economic performance. Forecasts are consistently being downgraded, and this Prime Minister keeps moving the yardsticks on how to measure his own mismanagement. First, the promise was to have small temporary deficits, and when that didn't work out, then it was going to be that the debt to GDP ratio never changed. Now, his new justification is that his credit rating, the country's credit rating, is still okay. That's like saying that the credit card company keeps increasing the limit. When will the Prime Minister realize that this is a recipe for disaster?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
The member opposite wants to talk about measurements. How about over 1 million new jobs created over the past 4 years? How about close to 1 million Canadians lifted out of poverty? How about 300,000 plus kids lifted out of poverty? As opposed to the stubborn years of low growth under the Harper Conservatives, we have invested in our communities, grown our economy, created opportunities, and a real and fair chance for Canadians to succeed. That's what this government has done.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, the facts are exactly the opposite. Under our government, we saw growth in the private sector. Under this government, we see growth in wasteful government spending. And we look at our partners around the world. Growth is higher than over half the G7 countries than it is here at home in Canada. The Parliamentary Budget Officer has confirmed that the billions that he booked in infrastructure spending didn't have a single bit of impact on the GDP. So when will this Prime Minister realize that a high-tax, wasteful spending agenda will hurt Canada's economy?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives consistently try to twist the truth, but the reality is we lowered taxes for the middle class as the very first thing we did and raised taxes on the wealthiest 1%. We also move forward, as promised, as our first thing in this new mandate with lowering taxes even further for the middle class. The average Canadian family is $2,000 better off today than they were under Stephen Harper, and it's because we choose to invest in Canadians and invest in our future.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, real wage growth was up under the previous Conservative government. Wages are barely keeping pace with inflation. GDP growth is barely keeping pace with population growth. Foreign investment is down, bankruptcies and insolvency is up. But it is good news if you are a well-connected Liberal insider, because we've now learned that MasterCard's senior lobbyist is a former Liberal advisor who made numerous contributions to the Liberal Party. Can the Prime Minister confirm that MasterCard's lobbyists and her connection and its connections with the Liberal Party helped them get the $50 million grant from Canadian Tire?
Honourable Prime Minister.
This investment is an investment in Canadians' welfare and Canadian jobs. It supports a new world-class cybersecurity center in Vancouver that will create hundreds of good jobs and protect Canadians from cyber threats in an increasingly digital world. Now, just in September, someone said it is vital that the government adopt new policies and keep up technology to make sure that Canadians, their money, and their personal information is protected. Who said that, Mr. Speaker? The Leader of the Opposition.
No,